Okay, here is the instructions for the front Watts links. I always follow the safety instructions that's in the instructions and make sure you're being careful with this thing. This is the front brackets for the tie rod ends. This is the center two brackets that's going to mount onto the jack bracket in the front to be able to mount the ball crank there, and then we'll mount the tie rod ends, of course, to both ends of the bell crank and the brackets. Of course, we've got the tools that we're going to need here with the two sockets, 9/16 and 3/4 inch socket. We've got the 9/16, 11/16, 3/4, 15/16, and the crescent wrench that we're going to need. And of course, got to make sure you got a torque wrench to torque everything. So we're going to get this stuff stuck up underneath this coach and see how it's going to go. We are under the front of the motorhome getting ready to install the front Monaco link systems. One of the first things we got to do is on the jack is remove the springs. Then the bolts, there's 4 bolts that we'll be removing. We'll take a couple out and put the bracket to slide in here on each side of this. We'll get the springs out of the way so we can get to the bolts. On this one, unfortunately, on the back side here, you can see that they put a little weld on that nut. For us, it's unfortunate because we've got to knock those off. So we're get a air hammer and chisel and get that off of there. And then the other thing is over here on the passenger side, we've got to put the mounts right in this area here beside the shock tower. Well, this little gusset right here comes over to the frame is in the way, so we got to do a little trimming right here. So I'll knock about a ½ inch off of that little corner of the gusset and get that out of the way. So to do that safely, I've loosened the shock here, kind of get that thing, we'll get that out of the way. And we got to do that on both sides. So we'll get that going, and then we'll be able to get back to you here on the rest of the installation on that. Okay, here we are under the front of the coach now, and we had to cut out this little gusset section on the passenger side, as you can see there, just a little ½ inch or so of that bracket. We had to do the same thing on the driver's side. So we removed the shock, shoved that forward so we could get up there with the whiz wheel and cut that off. So that's on the passenger side. We did the same thing on the driver's side. Then we came over here and removed all the springs from the jack. We had the 2 bolts here that mount the jack. And of course, on the back side of that, it had the back side had the nuts that was welded on there and there. So we had to take those nuts off. So now we're ready to start mounting the plates on each side here of the jack. And this is the driver's side looking towards the back of the coach. Again, up here is where we had that little notch that we had to take out of the gusset plate there. So we're going to start bolting on everything here, and we'll show you that when we get that done. Okay, here we are under the motorhome now for the front Watt system. And this is the jack. We had to take the springs off of the jack. Then we had the brackets mounted here for the bell crank to go on. ½ inch bolts go through here. We actually had to drill out the one side of the jack to have the ½ inch bolts go through it. The frame was drilled at a half, but not the jack. So those will be there. Then we'll put the bell crank here next. And we have, this is the driver's side. And this is the pointing towards the back of the coach. So the welded boss goes pointing towards the front of the coach, driver's side. The mount is pointing down towards the bottom. We had the shock moved out of the way, so that made it real simple to get up in here to be able to mount this. And this is the area where we had to cut out that gusset so that the bracket would fit straight down there. So then we'll do the same thing over here on the passenger side, cut out the gusset a little bit. Have the bracket there. Of course, this side then has the bracket with it pointing towards the top where the tie rod end is going to go in. Welded bosses in towards the front. So we're going to start getting the bell crank assembled here in the middle, and then we'll put the tie rod ends on, so we'll be back. Okay, we got the front Monaco Watts system installed. This is the center bell crank here now installed with the jack springs back on. They run up through the center of the bell crank here. We've got tie rod end here running over to the driver's side. It's coming down on the driver's side. And then over on the passenger side, it's on the top part of the H-frame running up there. So now it's time for a test drive. We're going to go out and see how this baby handles. Okay, here we are on the test drive after installing all of the Monaco Watts front links, rear links, and the rear crossbars. So we're driving back home on the interstate now, and the coach definitely feels like it is much more stable driving down the road. Doesn't feel like it's got all that side-to-side motion going on. It's got a little left degree angle on the road right here, it feels like. And we're running at 65 mile an hour again, so it does feel like it's more comfortable to drive. We'll see how it continues to roll down the road. We just went over that bridge and had a little rough terrain, and here comes another one. Yeah, we feel like we're just bumping up and down and not left and right in every which direction. So that's kind of nice, a little more enjoyable. Might have to let the wife start driving this thing. Okay, so we're gonna do some 2-lane road driving here now. This thing usually is pretty much all over the place on these little 2-lane roads. Before we did the Watts, or Monaco Watts link systems. So driving down the 2-lane, she sure seems to be a lot more stable. We'll see how it does down through. We got a big down a hill and through a dip coming up, and this is a little 2-lane state highway heading towards the house. And usually we got a pretty little funky deal going on right down through here. We're going to see how this bend goes. We're doing about 45, bringing around the bend, a couple little bumps in the road, down through the new little valley. Better. Feel like we can keep this thing on the road now. So we're going to be looking forward to many more happy miles on the road this year. We drove this thing about 7,000 miles last year. So we had several trips we went out on. So we're going to be putting many more miles on it again. So we'll do some more videos maybe when we're out on the interstate and we got some semis around us. See how it acts with that. So hope you enjoyed the videos.